Hardcore Nintendo fans often face the harsh reality that some of their favorite games are locked away indefinitely on old retro hardware. Although Nintendo arguably made great strides introducing selective backwards compatibility through Switch Online in recent years, countless classics still remain locked away for unknown reasons and unknown years. This problem is partially a side effect of Nintendo's obsession with drastically changing innovative hardware each generation, which usually limits native backwards compatibility. For example, consoles like the Wii, 3DS, or Wii U pose challenges when porting classics to newer systems due to their unusual hardware features. In other cases, though, Nintendo simply decides not to prioritize porting certain games, and that's the situation we find ourselves in with the amazing Metroid Zero Mission. Although I probably wouldn't say Metroid Zero Mission is the best Metroid game ever, I would say that it's the best Metroid game that almost no one can play due to the difficulty of just accessing this game. In this video, we'll explore why Zero Mission is one of the best games in the series, why the options for playing it are so extremely limited, and why the options that do exist are far from ideal. Please remember to hit subscribe for more Metroid content coming soon, and let's dive in. Metroid Zero Mission was released for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, so this year is its 20th anniversary. Over the past year, I've been playing through the entire Metroid series all over again after Metroid Prime Remastered reinvigorated my love for the series, and it's interesting to see how they hold up, what options there are now to play them, and how they compare to other entries in the series. So at the start of 2024, there are technically only two ways to play Metroid Zero Mission on official Nintendo hardware without the use of emulators. The more recent option was to purchase this game through the Wii U's online store. However, Wii U sales ended with an abysmal 13 million units, which means the likelihood of a random gamer who now wants to play more Metroid owning one is very low. Even if you do happen to own a Wii U or purchase a used one today, the online store for Wii U was shut down in early 2023, which means you can no longer purchase Metroid Zero Mission. That means the only way to play Zero Mission now is through a physical cartridge copy, which have become somewhat rare and continue to increase in price on used markets such as eBay. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's not too big of a deal. The Nintendo DS could play GBA games, so just splurge for the game and play it on one of those. Well, this is only partially true and still not a great scenario. I think most people forget that only the earliest Nintendo DS models supported GBA backwards compatibility, specifically the very first DS model and the original DS Lite. All of the later models of the DS had GBA support removed, and if you go online, you'll find those are the models that are most commonly resold. At least that's what I found. Finding an original DS Lite in good condition is definitely still possible, but that's an older system now and therefore less common and more expensive, and there's another unfortunate gotcha here as well. Notably, all of the XL models of the DS had GBA support removed, which means you're stuck with a 3-inch screen on one of the original DS SKUs, which feels painfully tiny in today's world of giant beautiful displays, especially if you're looking at the very dated original DS screen. Now, you can obviously also play Metroid Zero Mission using a Game Boy Advance, but that's starting to get into pretty ancient hardware territory since the GBA was released 23 years ago now in 2001. Surprisingly, the Game Boy Advance SP isn't all that hard to find on eBay. Whether it still works well might be a gamble, but usually those old Nintendo consoles are survivors. Unfortunately, the original Game Boy Advance didn't even have a lit screen. Remember that bizarre worm light accessory that reflected back at you in the screen? That means the only reasonable choice is the Game Boy Advance SP that was released later, but Game Boy SP screens and hardware varied over the years, ranging from a mediocre front-lit screen to a more serviceable backlit version, so you'll have to hunt down and pay for a decent SKU of this hardware. Only some SKUs of the DS can even play the game, and only one SKU of the GBA is a manageable option by today's standards, and all of those hardware options only have a tiny 3-inch screen. Metroid Zero Mission is a fast-moving game with beautiful sprite work, and it's really a shame to not be able to see this on a larger, brighter screen, unless you were one of the Wii U adopters who happened to purchase this game during that narrow window. After seeing how great Metroid Fusion looks and feels in portable mode on the Switch OLED or even on a full-size TV, I've been waiting for Nintendo to release this sibling GBA Metroid game. So let's talk about the game itself. Metroid Zero Mission is a masterful remake and expansion of the original Metroid for NES. In my opinion, the original Metroid is borderline unplayable today for all but the most devoted fans due to how dated it feels, lacking any sort of map or real save system and archaic controls, but I'll save that controversial discussion for another time. Metroid Zero Mission remedies all of those original problems by remaking the game into a more polished and energetic experience that holds up well even today, despite being almost 20 years old now. Zero Mission's appeal thrives in its simplicity and pacing. The game is fairly short, only about 3 or 4 hours long if you're just plowing through, but that allows for consistent momentum and well-polished segments of gameplay and high replay value. Much like Metroid Fusion, which is also very short, this game leverages its small size to deliver an experience that never drags on or gets bogged down. I just love the simplicity of this game. No frills, just fun to play. Zero Mission also has a fairly small or simplistic map for a Metroid game, but that works well for the small handhelds it was designed for. Like Metroid Fusion, you can get a sense for the overall layout of the game fairly quickly without having to constantly check the map, unlike the massive labyrinth designs of Samus Returns for 3DS or Metroid Dread. I personally like these blockier, simpler levels for handheld gaming and shorter sessions. Zero Mission is also just full of retro charm. All of the classic Metroid power-ups are here without any gimmicks or side plots or motion controls. It's just classic Metroidvania gameplay filled with lock-and-key designs, interesting puzzles, and clever environments. The different regions are also brought to life with great sprite work that really pops even on a DS Lite, so I'd love to see what this could look like on a Switch OLED or modern display. The art style has also been sort of adjusted to align with Super Metroid a little bit, but in my opinion, Zero Mission is actually the better looking game. Zero Mission really does feel like the original Metroid experience, but remade to feel just modern enough to be approachable and fun to play, even in 2024. Even the soundtrack is memorable and always seems to expertly match the pacing and atmosphere of every region or gameplay segment, ranging from energetic to quiet and moody. Zero Mission also expands on the original Metroid in a few welcome areas, spoilers ahead if there is such a thing for a 20-year-old game. There's a somewhat lengthy Zero Suit Samus stealth mission segment at the end that I personally enjoyed, even if not everyone might like this part, but it kind of shakes up the traditional flow and pacing of the game towards the end, and it knows right when to end to avoid dragging on too long. Although the general layout and flow of the game world is similar to the original Metroid, of course, there are a couple of new regions that aren't in the original, as well as some extra items to extend the length and depth of the game. I think these are all smart choices. The original Metroid is so sparse and minimal that they had to take these kinds of liberties to make it feel more modern and cohesive. Some purists may think that this game went too far with its changes, and that's fine too, but I think it did a good job of expanding on the original while still feeling like an OG Metroid experience. Zero Mission also does include the original Metroid with it on the same cartridge if you want to play and compare. I tried this out for a while, and it was a bit shocking to me how much more advanced, pun intended, Zero Mission feels in comparison. I completely appreciate what Metroid accomplished in 1986, but I think this faithful remake allows it to reach its potential. So it's 2024 now, and we're in sort of a weird spot with Metroid Zero Mission and even Metroid in general. We still don't know exactly when Switch 2 will launch, when Metroid Prime 4 is coming, whether Switch Online libraries will carry over to Switch 2 completely as is, if we're getting remastered ports of Metroid Prime 2 and 3, there's a lot of questions here. Essentially, this means we can't confirm the volume or timing or even existence of a large variety of Metroid content, so it's hard to say if or when this game will arrive on Switch Online. Supposedly, when Metroid Fusion hit Switch, there were some hidden files discovered that also referenced Metroid Zero Mission, and including this game just seems like such an obvious move, but you never know with Nintendo. Personally, I think we'll see this game arrive on Switch in 2024, perhaps to fill a gap until Metroid Prime 4. They are continually adding new games to the GBA library on Switch Online. If I had to make a more specific prediction, I think we'll see Metroid Zero Mission come to Switch Online early this year, around the time Fusion and Metroid Prime Remastered came out last year, and then I think we might see Metroid Prime 2 and 3 receive Switch remasters of a lesser scope than Prime 1 later this summer or fall, with finally a cross-gen release of Metroid Prime 4 in very late 2024 or early 2025. I think Nintendo will want to provide the option to play Prime 2 and 3 in some form before Prime 4 comes out. However, I also think Switch 2 is going to launch with a mainstream 3D Mario game, and Nintendo will push Prime 4 back a bit as a follow-up release to space things out and give it more time, similar to what they did with Breath of the Wild and then Odyssey for the original Switch back in 2017. All of this may or may not impact the release of Zero Mission in the Switch Online catalog. So anyway, I hope Nintendo follows through on this. It would be amazing to play Zero Mission on the beautiful Switch OLED screen instead of the horrible 2.9-inch screens of old. Do you think we'll see this game on Switch Online? What did you think of Zero Mission? What other Metroid announcements are you expecting or hoping for? Please leave a comment and hit subscribe, and let's discuss. Thanks for watching.